Okay, so before I get started, I want to make something very clear. What I'm proposing is not a Rio Overwatch League team, if that wasn't made obvious by the fact that Rio was not one of the cities announced by Blizzard last week to be getting an Overwatch League team. I just want to make sure that everyone is on the same page. This isn't some weird leak, this team is purely hypothetical, and here's a scenario that led to its hypothetical existence. After Team Brazil's thrilling reverse sweep of Norway in the Overwatch World Cup Los Angeles group stage, Blizzard saw the passionate fans in Brazil and realized that they needed a team in the country, and right now. So they decided to locate in the second largest city in Brazil, Rio de Janeiro. One thing led to another, and somehow I am the general manager of this new team, and one of my most important jobs right now is to put together a winning roster. Unfortunately, the owners of this team are not very in tune with the competitive Overwatch scene. They think that the best possible players for the league are players that have already had experience on the Overwatch League stage. Thus, the Rio Redemption challenge was born. Here are the rules. Number 1, as the GM, I have to build the roster for the Rio Redemption, an expansion team for the Overwatch League Season 2. Number 2, every player chosen for this roster must have been on an Overwatch League roster in Season 1, but is currently in free agency. Number 3, I'm following Overwatch League rules, so I must have at least 8 players at the end of my roster build and no more than 12. Finally, number 4, it is assumed that money is not a problem, and I can get any player to join my roster if I throw enough money at them. With the rules set, let's get going. So before I start naming players, let me talk you through some of my thought processes as I approach this challenge. Firstly, I think Overwatch League Season 1 taught us that smaller rosters are generally a better idea, especially for teams that are just starting out. Introducing too many players at once creates more opportunities for conflict and internal struggles. I don't want to go the way of early Season 1 Dallas here. So let's try and model a roster after the NYXL, with 3 tanks, 3 DPS, and 3 supports. Secondly, I think it's important for team synergy to have a team that can all communicate in the same language. Looking at the released players, I realized that there weren't very many Korean players released from rosters, and from the ones that were available, I don't think there was enough to build a Korean team from. I know this means I'm missing out on players like Miro and Otto who could be great, but I think I can get comparable, if not better results from Western players, so English team it is. There is one exception to this rule, unfortunately, but I'll talk about it when I get there. Now that you understand how I'm approaching this challenge, let's introduce the team. Starting off with my main tank, I decided to go with Fact Fiction, formerly of the Houston Outlaws. Going just off of his Overwatch League performance, this guy is pretty hard to remember. The Outlaws signed him midway through the season, played him a little bit in Stage 3 for a few maps, and then just decided to go with Muma for the rest of the season. Muma is a fantastic main tank, and taking the starting spot from him would be a monumental task for nearly anyone. But when he was played, Fact Fiction didn't do particularly bad. In fact, he was pretty good, and I believe he has the potential to be one of the better main tanks in the league if given enough time to polish his gameplay. People seem to forget that he represented the United States well at the Overwatch World Cup 2017 and achieved a lot with FaZe Clan beforehand, which featured players like Shadowburn, Carpe, and Rockist. Fact Fiction brings a lot to the table in terms of experience and skill, and I think he would be a great pick to start on main tank for any team. Now, backing him up, I'm going to sign iRemix, formerly of the LA Gladiators. iRemix is an interesting prospect. In Stage 1 of the Overwatch League, he was very inconsistent. Most of the time, he would end up feeding for his team, but every once in a while, he would find this spark of brilliance. Then the Gladiators got Fissure, and the rest is history. However, when the Gladiators went through with their surprising move of bringing iRemix to the starting roster for the playoffs, he looked much improved, doing well on all 3 main tanks when everyone's eyes were on him. Of course, then the Spitfire remembered how to play Overwatch, but that's not his fault. The fact that iRemix performed well in such a high-pressure situation impressed me. While Fact Fiction would probably earn the starting spot for the Redemption, I would definitely be open to iRemix starting if he impressed me enough. Most likely, though, he's a quality backup. Rounding out my tank trio, I'm gonna put in Manitin, formerly of the Florida Mayhem, to play off-tank. Manitin is largely considered to be one of the most consistent players on a Florida Mayhem roster that has struggled a lot over Season 1. However, Manitin was always a threat on his diva, and when he pulled out his Zarya, it was honestly really scary. I think it was a shame that the Mayhem let this guy get away. If he's put on a team with a better support line and a main tank that he can actually talk to and coordinate with, I think Manitin will be a great addition to my team. Moving on to my DPS players, my hit scan specialist will be Logix, who is my second player from the Florida Mayhem. This guy has the potential to be absolutely crazy. After a pretty quiet Stage 1, Logix woke up in Stage 2, putting together some stellar Tracer and Widowmaker play to practically carry his team to all of their 3 wins in Stage 2, but still, that's the most wins that the Mayhem ever got in a stage. Then, of course, they got Saya player, and it's pretty hard to take the starting spot off of...
Joe drops dangerously low, however, probably a bit of a volley there coming in from Zupe. There you go. Saya player rewarded with 1, follows it up on a kill, and now he's looking to cut him off as they retreat. Sure enough, there it is. Boombox is dead. Neptuno is dead. Saya player.
But Logix still proved himself on the Overwatch League stage, and he's the kind of guy that I can trust to frag out when I need him to. Now going on to projectile DPS, and honestly, who else could it be but Shadowburn? Not only is the guy immensely popular, and picking him up would be great for the popularity of my team, but Shadowburn was, and honestly is, still one of the most feared Genjis in the league before he got benched for EQO. His Genji is still great, as well as his Pharah, which I honestly think is one of the best in the league. Shadowburn has the potential to be one of the most explosive players in the world, and I'll make the Fusion regret letting him go. And to round out my DPS players, I have Shadowburn's Russian Overwatch World Cup partner, Mistakes from the Boston Uprising. Listen, you can meme the guy for his play late in the season all you want, but when they needed him most in Stage 3, Mistakes clutched out on so many heroes to help the Uprising through their unforgettable Stage 3 performance. What was once a Tracer one-trick has now turned him into a flex player of dreams, with Sombra, Widow, Hanzo, Junkrat, Genji, and Brigitte under his belt, among others that I might have forgotten. In this roster, I don't see him starting very much, but I feel like he's the kind of guy that I can plug into any comp, ask him to play any sort of DPS hero, and he will do it well. Maybe he won't be amazing, but he'll definitely be good. Having a guy like Mistakes on the roster, I feel, is an excellent insurance policy because he can just play so many roles. And that's why he rounds out my DPS trio. Moving on to supports, my choice for main support wasn't too difficult. It has to be Chips Hyen, formerly from the Dallas Fuel. Ah, Chips. One of the members of the Envious team that won Apex Season 1, part of the 2017 Swedish World Cup team that earned a bronze medal, Chips Hyen has done it all. Except on the Overwatch League stage. Chips generally lost out his starting spot to Harry Hook as the season went on, but I think there's still a great player in Chips, and I'm going to be bringing him on the team for his experience on Mercy and his ability to flex onto heroes like Ana and Zenyatta. Hopefully the internal structure of the Redemption will be better than the early stages Fuel, and we'll be able to bring out the Chips Hyen that was one of the most respected support mains in the entire world. As far as flex support, this was the position that was the hardest to figure out. This may be a symptom of the Jonak disease that has plagued the league, but not very many teams ended up releasing their flex support players. It was honestly either get creative or take one of the support players from the Mayhem. So naturally, I decided to get creative. Starting off my duo of flex support players, I give you Zappis, another player from the Florida Mayhem. But hear me out here. Zappis has had an incredible amount of experience in professional Overwatch, and has played a multitude of roles on different teams. While most would remember him for his diva play on the Mayhem and in the World Cup, he started out as a hitscan DPS and, yes, flex support a few years ago. It's been a while, but I think he can do decently if allowed to grind the role a little longer and specialize in it. Also, with his experience on so many other heroes, Zappis has flexibility that not many other players have. I could really see myself having fun messing around and plugging him into different parts of the roster to see where he fit best. I don't think the Mayhem utilized this guy to his full potential, and I would do my best to make sure I didn't make the same mistake. Now, to wrap it all up, this is the exception that I mentioned earlier. I'm going to pick up Guido, formerly from the Seoul Dynasty, to wrap up my 3 support players. Guido was a member of the Lunatic High that won Apex Season 3, though it is worth mentioning that he was mainly a DPS player at the time. While he made the switch to flex support at the start of the Overwatch League, I remember not thinking his Zenyatta play was bad at all. I actually thought it was pretty good, so Guido is my wild card. I honestly believe he was yet another victim of an indecisive Seoul Dynasty coaching staff, and can shine in the right environment. The issue is I'm not sure if throwing him on a team where he's the only Korean player is the right environment. I genuinely think he could be a great player, and I want to make it work with him, but if it doesn't, I can always figure out how to trade him for value mid-season. So that's it. I have built the Rio Redemption. To recap, I have Fact Fiction and iRemix on main tank, Manitin on off tank, Logix on hitscan DPS, Shadowburn and Mistakes on flex DPS, Chips Hyan on main support, and Zappis Guido on flex support. Now it's your turn. Who would you pick if you were the GM of the Rio Redemption? Let me know down in the comments, and as always, make sure to like this video if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you haven't yet. Real talk, guys, thank you all so much for 10,000 subscribers. I honestly didn't think this channel would grow so fast so soon, and I'm just so appreciative for all of you who sit down and watch my videos and enjoy them. Every positive comment I get is motivation for me to keep going, and I hope that I can continue providing content for you all into the future, into 20k and 30k, and however the heck big this channel gets. I'm just loving the ride, and I hope that you are too. So thank you guys so much for watching. That's it from me, and until next time, don't get tilted. Peace nut.